Thank you.
And we're live. We'll just wait for people to join in.
Hi everyone joining in. We can't see you, but we've imagined there's like hundreds of people.
Hello, everyone.
So tell us about the name Vicky.
Yes, Vishal.
How did Vicky come up? Is it you said we should do women ka Vicky? Was it Vicky Donor? Was it like tell us about as people come in, maybe you can tell us about why Vicky?
Why Vicky? Vicky is WICCI. It stands for Women's International Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So there'll be a small intro about it once we start.
Okay. We'll come accompanied with a song, Hey Vicky, you're so fine. Never mind. We should start, Mel should come in, we should start the special race.
Shall we start? Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, haven't we heard this before? Time and again, it's a very common usage. So common and normalized that we've forgotten how non-inclusive it is, how it marginalizes people in the spectrum and looks at world with a very binary focus, males and females, the two genders that we grew up knowing, the two genders that society acknowledges and accepts without bias and questioning. Why is that? Ignorance, yes. Lack of awareness plays a huge role in that, and today we shall do our bit by starting a conversation about gender, sexuality, diversity, and inclusiveness at workspaces. So let's begin once more. Good evening, friends, and wish you all a very happy Pride Month. May the spirit thrive. Before we start, just a few words about Wiki. Wiki Karnataka Human Resource Council is part of Wiki, a national business chamber whose endeavor it is to boost and build women's entrepreneurship and businesses through greater engagement with government, institutions, global trade and networks. It's present in about 120 countries with a collective strength of 250,000 members. Wiki Karnataka Human Resource Council is an ambitious initiative headed by Shikha Gupta and Shilpa Pruthi with a team of accomplished women from diverse organizations and various walks of life to create a platform where women strive to make a difference. It touches upon pertinent topics, current events, sensitive issues, and much more. Do check out our homepage for past events and for upcoming projects. My colleague Bhavna will now introduce the esteemed guests we have with us today. Over to you, Bhavna.
Thank you, Aisha. Before we get into introducing our esteemed guests, I want to wish everyone a happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride Month.
Yeah. So our first speaker for today is Parmesh Shahani, Head of Diversity and Inclusion at Godrej Industries and founder of Godrej India Culture Lab, and also an author of 2 books. Parmesh is a passionate advocate for LGBTQ inclusion in corporate India and has guided many of the country's leading companies on their inclusion journeys. His first book, Gay Bombay, Globalization, Love, and Belonging in Contemporary India, was released in 2008 and re-released in June 2020 as an updated edition. His second book, Queeristan, LGBTQ Inclusion in the Indian Workplace, was released in August 2020. Both pandemic-released books. Parmesh holds an MS in Comparative Media Studies from MIT. He is a TED Senior Fellow, a Yale World Fellow, and a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader. He is a member of the FICCI Task Force on Diversity and Inclusion and a board member of Khoj International Artists Association. Welcome, Parmesh.
Thank you. Really, really happy to be here.
Our second speaker is Melissa Ferrier, HR head for the practice, pre-sales and consulting unit for one of the large divisions of Wipro, and the global lead for LGBTQ+ charter for Wipro. An Australian who has been calling India home for the last 12 years, Melissa is a business-oriented HR leader, team leadership and OD specialist with over 18 years of experience managing recruitment, employee engagement, leadership development, employee capability building, onboarding, and attrition-related projects. She has a background in occupational psychology and is a PCC ICF certified coach. She has held HR, program management, consulting, and finance positions across multiple industries and in Australia, UK, and India. Welcome, Mel.
Thanks, Pavna. Thanks, everybody, for having me. Excited.
Our third speaker is Ankita Mehra, Lead Diversity and Inclusion at CareerNet Technologies and LGBTQ speaker. She has come a long way in her professional and personal journey, having been an LGBTQ plus activist at the age of 18 and being a lesbian child, having to fight a lot. Ankita came out on MTV, accepting herself on national television to empower people from the LGBTQ community to love and accept who they are. Being a topper and being rejected multiple times for being an open LGBT candidate, Ankita started in a call center. Seeing the need for women, LGBTQ plus veterans, and disability inclusion, Ankita started her journey with Equiv, with an endeavor to sensitize corporates. Till now, she has conducted more than 70 plus career fairs for women pan-India and has hosted an LGBTQ plus job fair in Delhi for the first time, where 700 plus job seekers applied for jobs in the inclusive organizations. She's also closely worked on initiatives around sensitization of LGBT, PWD, and software accessibility for multiple disabilities. A warm welcome to you, Ankita.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhavna. Thank you, everyone.
So we're very, very glad to have you as part of our panel discussion today. And Ankita, I wanted to start off by asking you, you come from a tier 2 city, is what you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And was there any challenge that you faced and how has your journey been?
Sure. Thank you, Bhavna. My only challenge was, belonging to tier 2 city. I always had issues finding people like me. When I was studying in Nasik, my college was anti-LGBTQ. They never had even one level of sensitization done. When I used to step in the college, my teachers used to say, dress like a girl, dress like a girl. Like seniors used to say, dress like a girl, dress like a girl. So I always had to deal with so many people out there. So I just had one small wish that why don't I get people like me with whom I can share my feelings with. I cannot just connect with my long distance sister that, okay, I'm actually being bullied in the college. So being in a community in that tier 1 or tier 2 city was very difficult for me. And I belong to an Air Force family. My father is in Air Force. He had to shift to so many cities in after 4 years. So I had no one to connect from the community. The only escape that I had was Facebook. Then again, you see people from the tier 1 city where these cities are very inclusive. I would say that applications like, Tinder, etc., who are there to connect you with people should focus more on the people who are actually not meeting anyone else from the community space. The second thing I would like to mention is when I first time went to Mumbai during Mumbai Pride. That was my first Pride ever. Oh my God! So when I went for Pride, I have seen that banners, posters everywhere about queer relationship, queer people. I was so happy that it is a very great representation. But when I go to Nasik, the same brand is not promoting or advertising in the same manner in my city, just because the city is not open yet. Until and unless a corporate is not taking a step up to actually take a risk for inclusion, that is always going to be a difficulty. So Bhavana, I would say being to tier 2 city or finding opportunity and inclusion or inclusive organization is just a luxury. I would say finding people was something which was everything for us. If these companies are taking the same initiatives in each and every offices that they have around India, that is going to make the change. I would say in tier 2 or tier 3 city, this is missing. And we face it every single day now itself. Every candidate has to leave their home and come to the city because they want to feel inclusive and they have to leave their home. That should not be the state. Like I came to Bangalore. I want to stay with my mama in Kanpur and do my job in an inclusive environment. That place I'm scared of even stepping out of the city. I'm like I'm scared of stepping out of my mom's house, because every time everyone they see, like I went to mall in Kanpur where they started checking me. A male is checking me, touching my body, right? This small things comes from small cities as well. Why are we not taking big initiatives in these small cities also? How much it will cost? Just teach them, ask them, are you comfortable? In this way, I don't think it's a right word to say, I felt harassed in so many malls, in so many washrooms. I felt harassed when in Nasik I used to visit in the washroom with my mom, and my mom used to feel insulted that why they keep on telling you to go out of the washroom just because I used to dress like a man. I had a masculine representation. So I would say in every city, in even Tier 1 and Tier 2 city, this should happen, and have faced the discrimination there. So I just wanted to put that across. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your story, Ankita. I think some food for thought for all of us here, right, who are from corporates, and definitely something for us to think about. So, Parmesh, how about you, right? We heard from Ankita. How about you, from a different perspective, where you have been mostly part of, been in cities and probably been brought up in an environment which might have been a bit different from, what Ankita has been brought up in. What's your perspective on this? Did you face any challenges, and how did you go about overcoming it?
So thanks, and I'm just very very glad that Vicky is having this conversation in Pride Month, talking about the intersection of gender and sexuality. I mean, before I talk about my life and my context, I think it's very important to everyone who's watching that this is a very unique Pride Month, in the sense that it's the second Pride Month which is happening in the throes of COVID. So for everyone who is, listening, paying attention, don't think that you heard an interesting webinar and go back to your regular lives, because we're all taking time out to share aspects of our lives and our experiences with you, while our LGBTQ family members are being ravaged by COVID-19 still. So if you're interested in, whether you're LGBTQ or straight yourself, if you're interested in our lives, our aspirations, and want to go about and include us, in your families and workplaces, a really good way to start this month is by supporting our community. There are so many wonderful efforts that are out. In every city, big and small, actually, there are incredible LGBTQ community organizations which are either raising, are doing crowdfunding campaigns for food for trans people, for example, or healthcare, or transition, livelihoods, and so on, right? There is all these efforts. So please, the moment you finish this webinar, go find a campaign in your own city and reach out and help our community. That's the best thing that you can do. If after that you want to do some, rainbow washing and pink cupcakes and all of that, that's good. But just don't think you've done one pink filter on your Instagram and you're supporting the community. Our community needs your actual help on the ground at this point. So everyone who's watching, please appreciate that. To answer your question, Bhavna, about whether I felt discriminated or what were my challenges, I think anyone who grows up in a society which is in a sense designed or framed for just some people will feel discriminated against, right? And this is all over the world. The world is in a sense designed for for straight men, which is why also, I mean, you all have Wiki, right, which is a collective of women in entrepreneurship and industry, to have that solidarity, because the experience of women in the space is fundamentally different. So me growing up in a predominantly heterosexual, male-dominated world, realizing that I'm queer was very, very different, because as Ankita said, you grow up, and I think, it's much harder when you grow up in smaller towns than bigger cities. But you do grow up irrespective, feeling, am I the only one? Is there someone else like me? Or why am I this way? Couldn't I just, confirm? You go through all these questions. and then you kind of accept. And with my case, I never had any existential questions. I was always very comfortable being gay. It was more about how comfortably do I articulate it to others, knowing the fact that society is not so encouraging. And then that journey of acceptance takes you much longer if you're, say, queer versus if you're heterosexual, because if you're heterosexual growing up, everyone imagines that you're heterosexual. So you don't have to carry this extra burden of coming out with regard to your sexuality. Although you will have some burdens that you are carrying in terms of other dimensions of your personalities as well. So for me, I was very lucky that I found welcoming bosses and welcoming mentors in my early workplaces and in college, both in India and in the US. And certainly in the places I worked in, the companies, prior to this, I was at Mahindra, now at Godrej. It has been a journey of evolution for these organizations as well. And what's been exciting in this evolution is that we've learned from each other. So I'm glad that Mel is on this, on this webinar as well, because we've learned so much from looking at what Wipro has been doing. And I think in this space, as we're all in some sense trying to create a better world, I'm just really very glad that we're not competing in this space. We're all collaborating, pushing each other, and helping each other create this better space. Because despite our best efforts with regards, to any dimension of inclusion, we're still a long, long, long way off towards anything actually substantial. So yeah, I mean, I could ramble on and on, but I really want to listen to Mel. Because,
thanks, Parmesh. Yeah. So Mel, how about you? You grew up in Australia, and then you've made a move to India. That in itself was probably very different for you. And then you did have certain challenges, possibly. Why don't you share that with us?
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks, Bhavna and Parmesh and Ankita, Nusha as well. It's great to be here. It's been a really fascinating journey. It's something I never planned. I always imagined I would stay in Australia, in the country, and live a pretty ordinary life. I met an Indian. I met an Indian woman 20 years ago, and in Australia, and we've been together ever since, and been really lucky to live in lots of different countries, and surprisingly chose India as home. So it's been an amazing 12 years. We've had a family here, so we've had a child each. So we have a rainbow family. And have been really, really happy here. It's a fabulous country, and each of you should be so proud in terms of the culture, the acceptance, and generally there's pretty a lot of tolerance. I mean, yes, there's very strong social and gender norms, which I think obviously it makes it very, very hard if you're non-conforming. But I think I've seen a real dramatic change in the last 3 years, and it's been so exciting to be part of that. I think there's a lot of similarities in terms of my own challenges I've faced, I guess, in Australia and living in other countries, and I'm really excited to share that. But I think we're absolutely going in the right direction, and these talks are so helpful because it just creates awareness and acceptance, and I think there's a lot of momentum building. So yeah, it's great to be here.
Thanks, Mel.
Taking off from what Ankita you said earlier, what are your observations about career opportunities for the LGBTQ community in India, and what more can companies do in that regard, in that space?
So I would very important question, because nowadays a lot of companies are taking their hands up and they're saying we want to hire queer people, but at the same time they are also ignoring the fact, are they ready for it or not? and this is real. Like, you have to be ready for it. We need to ensure, yes, gender neutral washroom should be there, policies should be there. That comes with an LGBTQ person coming in the organization. The major thing is the cultural differences and the cultural acceptance. When I'm sharing one very personal example here. When I joined my first company, I was very, very happy. I was out to my people around me, and what used to happen was, when I used to sit and take calls, they used to manhandle me, like, "Hi bro, what's up?" And I'm like, "Okay, it hurts, don't hit me." So they used to treat me like, "Bro, I was not okay with this. I mean, just because I'm masculine, I have masculine expressions, you cannot call me bro, you cannot manhandle me." The same way, I would say that cultural awareness was very important. It was 12 months in the organization, there was not even a single sensitization session that was done for us. And at the same time, the company and organization should also understand that, yes, every spectrum of LGBTQ is different than each other. They have to focus on every spectrum possible and ensure that how they can be as inclusive as possible. Yes, sensitization will be there on a continuous basis. Now let's talk about trans person, because being a trans activist, I'm very emotional towards it. There are a lot of companies who are covering SRS, their transition surgeries, right? But that is that enough? Like, a trans person goes through a lot of dysphoria. Just take an example of a trans woman. Maybe the voice can be a dysphoria for them. Maybe the email ID that you have given to them, that can be dysphoria for them. Maybe the facial hair is dysphoria for them, or whatever they want to be a woman. So if you're just covering the cost of the surgery, which is around 4 to 5 lakh, but there are other costs involved in this as well, like a laser surgery, which costs you 36,000 rupees for 6 sit-ups, and that is not enough. You have to go through 12 to 15 sit-ups. It depends from person to person. The hormone intakes that they take, it is 8,000 rupees per injection that they have to take for 3 months. Every 3 months they have to take one. And during the initial stage of their transition, they have to pay 16,000 for that injection, and they have to take every 3 months. At the same time, facial hair removal, and it's a very painful process. Like, I've spoken to people, it was very painful. So I'm just saying that if you're just covering the cost of 4 lakh or 5 lakh, which is just for the operation, are you covering all the costs of all these things which comes with it? If a company is ensuring that we don't want our employee to go through any dysphoria, they have to ensure that each and everything is taken in consideration, right? So a transition takes more 10 to 15 lakh, which I would say in a possible way, like the possible culture that we have thrown it to people. A girl should look like this, a boy should look like this. And another thing is that if a trans woman is transitioning, they will also have a hair loss as well. Like, just male get their hair loss, like they get hair loss, right? So they have to spend more 2 lakh on this. The expense of 15 lakh is the expense which is covered is only 5 lakh rupees. What about the other 10 lakh rupees? And when you're hiring the trans person in 30,000 of salary, how is that possible? So ensuring that the steps are taken not just for the surgery and the other places also. I just split this transgender vertical from the LGBTQAI, right? So we have to ensure we are stepping into each and every vertical, focusing as much as possible to make them feel inclusive. For me, why it was very important. There was a time where I went in the washroom, that washroom, female washroom, like female body washroom. I went in. There was a girl who came closer to me. I was very uncomfortable in that space. I share this story in each and every talk I do, because it is important. When I went into the washroom, she was closer to me, and I was not comfortable in that space. When I went and complained it to HR, they said that, why she will come closer to you? She's straight. You are gay. That happened on my face. So just because I'm queer person, it gives me the leverage to, you know misbehave with someone. And what type of assumption that you kept in your mind? This was actually a conscious bias, which now 4 years back I'll treat it unconscious bias, but still that is there. So the cultural fitment is important. Concluding to your answer, cultural fitment is important. The strategy of understanding each and every spectrum of the LGBTQ space, because they are very different than each other. How we can make and ensure this is by talking to people, asking them what they want. Take as much education as possible. Read about things. Parmesh have mentioned in Queristan in a very proper way. Like, any beginner can read that book, and I have that signed book. Thank you, Parmesh. But every beginner who reads that book, they will get so much of knowledge. So ensuring that in each and every decision you're taking the community members' advice, that will be as inclusive as possible in the world for your organization to make that space. So I'm done with my answer. I hope I answered the question. Okay. I'm very nervous today because Parmesh is here. He's a mentor, so okay.
I mean, I looked up to you for inspiration. Please.
Still,
Yeah, thank you.
I just thank
Going
you.
from her to the mentor, would you like to throw some light on this topic as well, Parmesh?
So I think, as Ankita was giving you really a close to the ground perspective on what it's like, right? So as I said earlier, it's not about adding some rainbows and then saying this. I mean, when you are on this journey of LGBTQ inclusion, you have to do some real work. So to follow up on that, and you do it because you recognize it's in your own interest. In Kyrgyzstan, I talk about how, LGBTQ is a $5 trillion economy worldwide, or $200 billion in India. How all the data suggests that being inclusive makes you 8 times more innovative. And of course, you attract the best talent. So when you are going out and making all these efforts to be inclusive, to whether it's LGBTQ, whether it's PWD, whether it's the most basic, which is, gender and women, as an organization, I think it's very important that you do it from an understanding that you are doing it for your own future success and relevance. You don't have to approach it with this air of benevolence. You're not doing anything extra for anyone. You are doing because everyone, I mean, if you care about employees, you're doing something that is going to benefit you in the long run. When you take care of your employees, when you create inclusive environments, when you provide facilities in which they can thrive, who benefits? Of course, the employees benefit, but ultimately your organization benefits so much more. In Kyrgyzstan, I wrote about how progressive companies like Wipro organize LGBTQ carnivals on their campuses. And it was a very close description of one of these carnivals to sensitize all their employees, right? Because not enough doing policies, for example, but how do you give people a sense of what queer culture is, what queer individuals are? So I think really for anyone who's listening in this Pride Month, who cares about creating a better India, a more profitable India, a more innovative India, and wants to go on this journey and wants to commit to inclusion, you have to realize that you are going on this as it's a long-term journey you're going on. You will go on it, with your employees, and serve your employees and serve your customers and other stakeholders, and you will benefit a lot from it. But it involves committing to it and committing to it over the long term, and doing a whole bunch of things in the process. So yeah. I mean, there's a lot more, but as Ankita said.
And maybe, I mean, just to add from a kind of a Wipro lens as well, I think we've certainly seen a shift since, it's that whole repeal of 377 and end of 2018. And then from 2019, you had your first Pride Circle job fair in Bangalore, where we are today. And then, Delhi followed, which often we're following the north, or Mumbai. So I think that has really, I think been such a, an eye opener, and that continues to be a, great platform focused LGBTQ hiring. I mean, from a Wipro perspective, I think in terms of the LGB, our focus has always been that they're in the organization, and our data suggests that. It's really focusing on how to really make them feel comfortable to bring their full selves to work and not hide their identity or sexual orientation. And that's been, a lot of our work over the last 2 years. But specifically with from a trans perspective, obviously that is a continued focus for us, because it's so important to provide those employment opportunities. So we've slowly started that. We've been working with Periphery, and we've been onboarding trans persons, both from a technical and non-technical skill base. And what's been wonderful with Periphery is almost they're kind of getting them organization ready, and through grants from the government, they're able to, teach those basic skills where perhaps Vipro doesn't have that bandwidth. So that's been a really exciting process. But again, there is that sensitization, not only from within, because we have our unconscious bias trainings, we have awareness sessions at a unit level, and a lot of other things, but it's the extended ecosystem. It's the security guards, it's the contractors, it's the vendors, it's everybody within that ecosystem as well. So I think that's been certainly the challenge for us. And I think from a hiring perspective, obviously we still don't have enough out and visible LGBT leaders. So we're really hoping that will change. But I think it's a really exciting space. And again, we want to do so much more. So as I said, really focus on trans hiring, because again, visibly, and they really do suffer from employment opportunities. So as well as accommodation, living standards. And that's why, unfortunately, we see so many of them turn to alternatives, which, a lot of them are educated, but they can't obviously cover those costs. They can't find a safe place to stay. So that's just a little insight, but I think the Pride Circle and having focused LGBT hiring is just a really, really positive step for organizations.
So taking from there, Mel, you did speak about hiring, and Ankita and Parmesh about the employee experience itself, right, in this community. How about the benefits? Do you see that there are changes today in the kind of benefits that companies are providing? It could be around insurance, the leaves around parental adoption leaves and health benefits.
I think again, I've seen a dramatic shift even in Vipro as well. So we've extended insurance cover to same-sex partners. We also, pay for gender reaffirming surgery as well as the hormone therapy. But as Ankita said, it's not the whole thing. It is a partnership with the employee as well. So our insurer does kind of cap that as well. And as you rightly said, it is that 4 to 5 lakh range. So I think, because we're unsure really in terms of, the cost of that. And the issue I think a lot of organizations face is in Vipro and many others, it is employee pays. So obviously, we're very careful that we don't increase our premium because employees do directly pay. I think other organizations where employer is paying, it's a lot easier to do these things. So I think that's what really slowed down Vipro. It's only been the last year that we've been able to extend that and really convince our insurers that this was the right thing to do and almost take the cost of a slight increase in that premium. But again, particularly for gender reaffirming surgery, that is capped. Again, we're not sure of the cost. So there is some conservative approach to that, but I think once that gets going, I think we'll relook at that. Look, I think most organizations are kind of starting in that direction. I think where the gap is obviously you've got statutory requirements, life insurance, provident fund, pension fund, where, even my partner, we got married in Australia. Obviously, that's a different topic. But on any of those Indian forms, I can't put her down, which just feels so wrong. So I think if organisations can lobby to get those statutory processes to at least consider a domestic registered partner, I think that would really make a big difference to have my life insurance, to put down my children. It doesn't feel right. So I think that's the next step. And I think if organizations can get together and lobby the government, we must change these very outdated and narrow kind of forms that don't look holistically. So that's my kind of 2 cents on that. But I would love to hear Parmesh and Ankita as well. I'm sure they'll have loads of points to add to that.
Yeah, well, I'd love to add to the benefits conversation, because I think more and more now progressive, of course, a lot of organizations don't have these, but a lot of the bigger, more progressive organizations are moving towards. So it's the norm to have same-sex partnership benefits, everything gender neutral, for sexual reassignment surgery, etc., etc. My challenge is more in terms of actually having, socializing these, communicating these, making sure that enough people are using the benefits. And that means that we have to really have a better funnel to bring in people into our organizations. Even say in my own organization right now, we have all these benefits, but we have very few people who are taking, who are availing of them. And so we're looking, where is it? I mean, is the atmosphere still not comfortable enough that people are comfortable enough to come out and claim the benefits? Are we not hiring enough people because are we using, this outdated idea of like merit, which creeps up strangely enough only when you're talking about queer people or women or or Dalit, or any candidate which is, non-mainstream, or non-male. So, to me, that's the challenge, because you can have the best policies and benefits in the world, but if in each conversation the various hiring teams are saying, well, we had two candidates, and of course the queer one was nice, but we chose the straight one on merit, and of course the woman candidate was nice, but the male candidate got the job, and things like that. I mean, then so we have to look at all these pain points, right? Which is why I think we have to do this you have to work on benefits, you have to work on the culture and training, you have to work on the hiring, you have to work on the pipelines, as Mel was saying, with job fairs, etc. But you really have to have people out there. I think the proof of the pudding is in the hiring and having people. I know Ankita wants to say something.
Go ahead, Parmesh. Okay.
No, I thought you raised your hand. I thought you wanted to say something.
No, go ahead.
Yes.
Abit nahi.
So, since you said there are benefits, where do organizations stand in terms of adoption? Are they the same benefits that a straight couple have for queer couples as well?
I mean, it's very easy to have this on paper. So we all have gender neutral. In theory, everyone can adopt. But today, I mean, I have the benefits from my own company, which they're offering me, but nobody's going to go out. And I mean, if I go out and like apply to adoption agencies, I'm not going to go through that process. So it's nice to have the benefits conceptually and naam ke vaste, and like but the practice is much, much harder. And that's the challenge. I mean, anyway, this is something that we thought of as well some years ago, right? And it's just guidelines and all of that just a couple of years ago. It's become very, very hard and almost impossible.
Right.
I also want to add a point. The very basic thing when when a new fresher joins, also they tell them about the dress code, and that dress code is specified in a very
Binary.
heterosexual
Binary.
way binary is the word.
Binary terms.
So why are we restricting people to follow a dress code? So I would just say that is a very, very basic thing that people should change. The second one will be posh with no judge. So now let's talk about big brands. They will understand this. They will understand queer people. They will understand gender expression. They will understand about sexuality. But the ones who don't, they will definitely blame onto people who are from the queer community if the same sex harassment comes in place. So just that is very, very, very important thing. And anti what we say, there's a word, anti-discrimination policy should be very, very strict for the LGBTQ people. So that is also very important. So these are the things I wanted to put across. Okay, one more thing. Sorry for jumping in. So there's one trans woman I spoke to just now. So the trans woman got hired during the work from home time. So she's still not, met in anyone from her organization. She's so worried to go to her organization because she has to still face the dysphoria that she's faced in the past organization. Like when she'll step in, there will be security guard, misgender, then the whole process altogether. So people who have joined during the work from home time, it was easy for them to be there, but still restricting them just for the work from home where they are more feeling more comfortable than the offline work. We should not let that stage come, right? If you're
Right.
hiring someone in during this time, ensure that till the work from home is over, they are included. So this was very important point that I wanted to portray. Thank you.
So, talking about the changes in law, members of India's LGBTQ community lag behind their Western counterparts in attaining equal pay, corporate representation, and other benefits. Is this true? How true is this? And your views on what the shift has been? This is to Parmesh and Mel, whoever wants to.
I mean, clearly, we lag behind. I mean, it's the same for women in general, right? If you look at whether it's pay parity, whether it's glass ceiling, whether it's representation at various levels, whether it's decision making. I mean, clearly there's such a huge gap in terms of gender. And even though gender has been on the table for so many years, I mean, in so many companies, including sometimes in ours, when you talk about women, people say diversity candidates as if it's to assume that it's women. So despite all these well-meaning efforts, I mean, there isn't any parity. And in fact, if the larger macro economic data suggests that women's participation is actually, at least in terms of numbers, falling in the workforce, at least, over the past year or so. So lower participation and increasing inequality in that sense. So very much the same with regard to LGBTQ, except that LGBTQ is not on the front burner in most organizations in the same way as gender is. So either in terms of any kind of mandate from various governments that you need to have so much percentage, or you need to have at least so many board directors who might be LGBTQ or differently abled, etc., etc. Or, I mean, there's none of that in any other dimension of, DNI except for gender. So, I mean, I think that's the reality. So clearly, if you have more leadership, if you have visible people in leadership roles who are from the LGBTQ communities, it does have a ripple effect, as it's had in so many other parts of the world where people are inspired. If you combine that with creating pathways through scholarships, fellowships, grants, active hiring, working with consultants, etc., you have a much better pipeline, and you create that kind of more diverse organization. But we are far from any of this, and the inequalities are like glaring with regard to LGBTQ. That's where we are right now.
Mel, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we're probably 30 years behind. So we've got a lot of catching up to do. I was just talking to a friend yesterday. His partner is in the UK. He's in India, and he's trying to apply to be a dependent on his visa. And obviously the UK very, very progressive, and they require a couple of bank statements. One is a joint bank account, a utility bill, and a lease agreement. So I think he's visited 10 banks and big banks, and all of them have been very, very reluctant to, kind of give them a joint bank account. So there's little things like that it's so hard to recognize that partnership. So I think obviously marriage equality would really change a lot of those things, because it's there's legal status, and it just change a lot of those things. So, but as Parmesh said, I mean, a lot of it, if you have a sponsor, like as he was saying, even for Wipro, gender, from a diversity point is such a huge focus for us, and they're driving it with such rigor. Probably not the same rigor as LGBTQ or people with disabilities, but that just makes such a difference, and holding the business accountable, for those hiring norms, or how many LGBT people we have a certain level. So I think we have a long way to come, but I see it in terms of the diversity and inclusion curve anyway, that we're in that perhaps immature state. We're moving, and you're comparing yourself against other nations that are more on a mature lens, and they've had 30, 40 years of Stonewall and beyond. So yeah, I think it is sad, it is true, but I think, and this is why it's so fantastic everybody's tuned in, because you really have such an influence to lobby business, to get attention, to it's a basic fundamental right. You're giving us dignity, and again, we'll always be the minority. There's no threat. So I think it's just, and as Parmesh says, there's business benefits to it. So I think, look, there's a long way to go, but I think I've just been so amazed just in 3 years how much we've done. And before it was all a little bit hidden because we did, obviously have Section 377, and there was some fear about that, even though that was a very specific act. But I think it's been a great few years, and I'm sure it'll just keep growing. But we need to drive the change and do something and take action, not just be passive. Yeah.
Parmesh, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to build off what Mel was saying, to say that, the situation is, we're far from where we would like to be, but therein lies the opportunity for companies that want to engage. Because, I'm sure your audience who's watching is, it's people who work at startups, it's people who work in big companies, irrespective. This particular space is going to boom. So if you enter now, and if you have a long-term vision and strategy, you can reap exponentially from this boom. And because you are an early mover, an early adopter, you will start reaping earlier. So it is in your interest. If you hire more queer people, you will get the best queer talent before it becomes a big thing for other companies to start looking for us. But if you flag to us that you are willing to engage with us and commit to us on this journey, the best queer talent will gravitate to you before it does to others. So you will reap those benefits, right? If you design products and services for queer people. So, Mel, in the past week, a huge bank has reached out to me and actually said that they want to be they reached out to me as a target gay customer. And they said, we want you to know that we offer joint bank accounts. And if you and your partner want to open a bank account, please open it with us. Now, I had no intention of changing my bank, but I was so excited. So I just opened a bank account and shifted maybe 1/3 of my money to them. They got my business. It was just a phone call. There's many other people like me. We're also a market. So my point is, if you actually, if you hire more of us, if you design products and services targeted to us, if you really go out there and think about how you can engage with and serve us, you are going to benefit in so many ways. Because the bar is so low, even if you do small things right now, you're going to benefit. So why would you not want to, right? It's Wiki, it's a chamber of commerce. No, it's not a chamber of saving the world. So all the people who are watching on this, you all understand business, I hope. It is in your commercial interest to be inclusive. I hope you go away with that message. So,
most definitely.
And Bhavna, just to add on, because I think because of the HR fraternity, look, there is discomfort, and we are well equipped to help, deal with that. Like with any change, and we are drawn to homogeneity, and there's a comfort with people that look and speak, and so there is, a discomfort that we must be at ease with that. And like with anything, you get sensitized, you become less shocked, and then it's just BAU, isn't it? So I think that there's something powerful as a HR fraternity that actually, because that will come out of it. People don't like to feel that discomfort, I'm not sure how to respond, and that's where we can help so much, and because then we will keep progressing. So yeah, just wanted to add that on.
So
Talking
I
about
just had a question. Sorry, Aisha. So I know because there's a lot around hiring. So Ankita, right? Ankita, you were on the other side where you're actually working with corporates, and we're just curious to know what do potential employees expect while they are being evaluated, right? Because you work with candidates who are looking for opportunities, and then you have employers on the other side. So from your perspective, what is it that they are looking for when they're looking for jobs?
Sure. Bhavana, so I'm going to share not just my experience. Before this talk, I spoke with so many agencies who are working for this. So I'm sharing the mixed thoughts together. First of all, when we go ahead and let's talk about trans persons right now. In India, there are very limited trans persons who are in a very good job and are in the mid senior level position, or like a few I know personally are in leadership level. But what about the folks who did not get the privilege to study, who were thrown out of their houses, who were into sex work as well? And there were some people who got fired also. Trans people got fired also during the COVID time, and they still did not get a job. So what is the problem right now is no if the company, there were comments that companies do give is, I want to hire, but I want to hire on the basis of the skills. I don't want to force fit anyone. The question comes is, are you really force fitting, right? A lot of LGBTQ people from their childhood has, like, I am personally, I'm talking out and loud about it. I have anxiety issues. I see a therapist, and I've been seeing a therapist from so many years. I had 90% of the thoughts invested just in one day will come that I'll be thrown out of the house. That fear I've lived in since I have realized, I have known about myself, and that have distracted me so much from my studies. But still, I was a strong person mentally, emotionally, who managed to bring all these things together. But we completely ignored the fact that there are so many queer people out there who are still dealing with this problems at home, problems at work, and problem to upskill themselves. So are the companies ready to invest in before hiring? I would say yes, there are few of them, but every company need to understand that they need to do some investment in learning. They can hire them on an intern or on a contract basis for 6 months. They can educate them on basic skills, which is Java, or you can talk about calling, talking, typing, etc. When we're talking about trans person or people who are underprivileged. So now, if you are taking an interview of trans person and you're expecting that they should score 7 to pass a call center role, do you think that will happen? Did they go through the same life as ours? No. So we all need to step up. We all need to take as much initiatives possible. We have to do investments when we are hiring queer people, to be honest. It is not going to happen just by putting posts, you're going to get the candidates. You really have to make adjustments and investments. The second thing is, if you are hiring them, ensuring that the dead names are not in their email IDs. The third thing is, internally, are you promoting the queer people internally? They are growing in your organization? Maybe you just hired them, you force fitted them, but are they growing? Wherever you have kept them, are they happy about this? Every 3 to 6 months you have to sit with their internal ERG team or the LI team which we have kept in the organization, a specialized HR who's trained to deal or talk with the queer people should be there to know their interest as well. So the communication, the adjustment should come from the both ways. I'm not telling that LGBTQ people should get the job in their hand just like that. They're ready to invest in their time with you when you are giving the training to them. They're ready to come in, work in a low pay just to educate themselves to work for your organization. So these things should be taken in consideration. There's so many organizations out there who are doing it as their goal. They want to hire, they have a number to hire, but ensuring with the goal of hiring, you have to ensure that cultural change and cultural push. Now the organizations are coming, they say, I want to hire. I said, are you sensitized? Are things sensitized? Then they said, no. We have to take budget approval for that also. This comes with budget as well. So when you are planning to hire, you have to take budget of education, cultural sensitization first, then take the hiring budget, because that will be fair for you also, that will be fair for us also, and that will be fair for everyone as well. So ensuring investment in sensitization of your leadership team, ensuring that you're as dedicated as possible to take challenges. Every HR professional over here who is listening has a challenge to talk to their DNI. They're leaders in the organization who give you money. You should step up. How you should step up, it's not going to happen because it's a profession. It will come with your, what we say, interest and the passion towards the inclusion. Read about it, talk about examples. I have this book. Okay, you have so many numbers in this book. Not just that, you have so many numbers online. You have to utilize Google as much as possible. There are so many research papers. I refer to Godrej research paper which Parmesh has closely worked on. Shows so much of information how your organization will be beneficial to hire a queer person. Just take those papers. Paka pakaya khana, like food is cooked. You just have to take and give it to them, take their half an hour time and give them the reality check. That will make your life easier. That will make everyone life easier for you to get budgets. And then making sure that you're doing in a right way. Not just because 10 companies are doing it, your company should always do it. It's okay to take time. As Pamesh said, we are actually at the early stage right now, but still educate yourself, take the responsibility of an ally. Before being a DNI leader, please be an ally, then become a DNI leader. So I think भावनाओं के साथ बह गई. I just so that is my answer. I would also share, Bhavna, the link of the book and the article of the, what we say, research report of Godrej. It is a very simple report to refer to for anyone who's having a starter conversation with any of their leaders. So yeah, that is it. Thank you.
Talking about sensitivity in corporates, a lot of sexist jokes happen in corporates, and there's a lot of training that happens nowadays towards sensitization of that. What about homophobic jokes at workplaces? Is there any training that goes on about how to be sensitive towards those comments or jokes or anything?
So I will say one thing. I personally started releasing memes which talks about, okay, when a trans person goes out of the home being the true self, there's like all is well, all is well, all is well. I started releasing those memes with that. So make sensitization not as a restriction, make it as engaging as possible. Right, so the homophobic comment, like right now, you heard my story. Ankita came and said, I this was this happened to me in the washroom. Now you understood this should not happen in the washroom. The same way, have the representation from each and every spectrum of the community, where they can themselves say that what offends them, what not. So it's not like people intentionally want to hurt someone. People hurt someone because they do not have a knowledge of it, right? The same way, it's not with just homophobia. If someone do not know how to speak in English, they are still made fun of because they're brought up this way. We can just make it as normalized as possible with more and more representation, educating in a fun manner, showing them theater plays. So ek Maghav Bag, you can call a queer artist as a representation, call a drag person, right, a drag queen or drag king. Let them represent themselves. So more and more representation will reduce the chances of homophobic or transphobic jokes, because you see it in an entertainment purpose. And just like the movie which we saw of Ayushman Khurrana, so एक लड़की को देखा तो ऐसा लगा, when I watched एक लड़की को देखा तो ऐसा लगा, I made people watch it, then they saw me in a different way. So entertainment engagement is very, very important. Just sessions, taking them through PPT is not going to help. Be as innovative as possible in that. So yeah, Parmish.
No, you have to know which point to press on. And I think here in most organizations, if you can work with the founder, the CEO, the managing director, the senior most leader, because it takes time to change everyone's mindsets, but we are still very, very hierarchical in our country. So if the boss says something, we do it. So to role model what non-homophobic behavior looks like, it's very important for you to use your senior leader, which is why DNI should be something which is not just, belonging to HR. If you can get the managing director, right? So if at Wipro, if Rishad or, someone senior sends out a message to everyone saying, hi, I'm Rishad. Today is, Ida Hobbit. Let me tell you about, why I think that we all need to be, this is what good behavior looks like. I will personally be very disappointed if you, A, crack jokes like these. I don't think they're funny, neither should you. B, do this. C, do this. Please reach out to me, right? that kind of thing is very, very different from you getting some compliance related email from something saying, do this or whatever. So I think a good way for all of us, and everyone who's listening, if you are a senior leader, the responsibility is on you. You need to tell your teams that this is not okay, this is not funny. And if you're not, you need to work with your senior leaders to say, you may not realize it, but if you actually just do this for our community, you're going to help change mindsets, much faster than if it was bottoms up. So I think in things like homophobic, what is homophobic, what is not, use your senior leadership. And as Ankita said, use culture. And it's great to say, hi, I'm MD of this company. I'm doing this conversation because, I don't know. My daughter came and told me that, Dad, I think you're homophobic. So I'm just going to find out, whether I can do this or not, right? If as a senior leader, you're kind of showing your teams that I don't know this as well. Let's find this out. And if we figure out that this is not, let's not do this, right? You've taken your teams along with you on this journey. So I think that really, really helps. And it has more long-lasting impact as well.
Unfortunately, mainstream entertainment has a lot of misrepresentation of what homosexuality or pro-life is. So, yes, Mel, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think we've run out of time, but look, I think there's zero tolerance. But I think the wonderful thing is law is partially on our side as well. So with the Transgender Act, it's a 2 years imprisonment if you're found to discriminate because of employment opportunities or at work. So organizations are worried, and the consequences of that will really change. Even for Wipro, we have created a global policy against LGBTQ discrimination, and already we have an ombuds which forbids any discrimination against anybody, but to call that out specifically and to know that 2 years imprisonment and massive fines. Obviously, it doesn't cover all it, just from a trans person perspective, but I think that's incredibly powerful where the law does not permit it. So obviously our code of conduct, that we have zero tolerance, and like for prevention of sexual harassment, there is a channel where people can call out if people have used discriminative language, and there'll be tough action taken against them. So it's I think, zero tolerance, and it's also part of our awareness sessions as well. We go through that, what's appropriate, what's not, and really to stamp that out, because that's just not acceptable. So I think having a tough line and calling it out.
I think basic empathy training would really help in corporates.
Yeah. So yes, one addition I want to do is I am 24-year-old, right? And I feel so privileged that I get to see the India like this, where we are talking about this. Whatever we are living right now was a dream of people who have started this dialogue, who has started this awareness, and some of them are not with us anymore. I just want to say that we have a very big responsibility of the sacrifices and the struggles of people in our hand. And at the same time, I would like to appreciate wherever we are right now, it's a very good space than being at that space right now. So we should just not stop here. We should continue the legacy. We have to create the future where our kids are going to live in. And I really wish that till I'm growing up, like in 6-7 years, I think marriage should be legalized and I'll be happily married woman. I wish to see that in India. Like I had options to leave India, but I want to stay here because I really trust the people out here who represent the community. And we need allies. Okay, so the basic intention of me coming and doing these sessions was to make you all allies, because with all of your support we can go there like 30 years distance. We can cover it as fast as possible, as many allies as we have with us. So I just wanted to say to each and everyone who's attending the live, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ankita. And yes, let us hope that in 10 years we all get to see you married happily in India. And we're all your allies.
Happily, but that's like
Yeah.
5 years with my partner, I can tell you it's not happy all the time. I'm sure Belle can testify to that as well.
That comes
That's
with
a
the
different topic
heterosexual
altogether.
relationship altogether. So
And that's the same whether you're straight or queer. I'm sure many people on this must be nodding and say, yes, yes, even when you're straight,
Yes.
while they become idiots. You have
yeah.
to tolerate that.
On that note, thank you so much, all of you, for taking your time out and being part of this session. It was wonderful talking to all of you and extremely informative. And yes, we are all allies and we shall be in this fight together. And let's hope that we create way more inclusive spaces in the future than there is right now. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
everyone.
so much.
Thank you.
Happy
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy Pride Month.
You're live.